You're at the Coaching Inn, 3D Coaching's virtual pub, where we enjoy conversations with people who are engaged in the world of coaching.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Coaching Inn. And it's a delight today to be in the company of Katie Lewis, who has written a most amazing book with her friend Matthew Stafford called Find Your 9 Others. The questions to ask yourself as you start up and scale up. This one's for everyone, folks, because either you're coaching people who are starting up or you're starting up yourself. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you, Claire. It's great to be here.
Tell us your story as a human, just for a couple of minutes, so we get to know you a bit.
Sure. So I am from New Zealand, and I immigrated to the UK in 2007 after my university studies. And very typical of the time, it was the overseas experience that the New Zealanders take. And I said to my mum, I'll see you in 18 months. And that is whatever that is now, 15, 16 years later. I thoroughly enjoyed setting up life in London. But it was really the sort of into the first 2 or 3 years that I kind of found my groove when it came to work. And I started working in venture capital. So I spent about 4 years working in early stage investment. And it was through that experience that I met Matthew, my co-founder of 9 Others and co-author of the book. And during that time, Matthew was working for a different investment firm to me. But our companies were part of a consortium delivering investment readiness training for early stage entrepreneurs. And in most instances, those people were going about the fundraising journey for the very first time. So it was all about demystifying how to prepare your business to raise external equity investment. And as part of that process, we were tasked with making introductions from appropriate investors to entrepreneurs. Yeah. And so we did so by a whole variety of means that you can imagine, but we clicked on this idea of running dinners where we would bring a handful of investors, a handful of companies that were, loosely connected and aligned. And they would, have a very successful meal. There was lots of interesting conversations. It was, I think it sort of took some of the pressure off the entrepreneurs a wee bit because they were there with their peer group. And likewise, the investors were able to sort of talk about the different opportunities that they saw in the businesses they were meeting. But it used to frustrate me that, at the end of the night, at the end of the kind of formal part of the evening, the entrepreneurs would be in one corner, the investors in the other. And it was sort of like the old school disco, formula. And I remember saying to Matthew, these people have been bugging me to meet these investors. What are they doing? Why are they kind of, now off having this conversation in the corner? And I think it happened often enough over several of these meals that it became a bit of a rhythm. And I thought, actually, you know what? There's something happening here. There's an opportunity for these founders where they've sort of been part of the business. They've done the business of pitching their idea, having the formal conversations, and now they're recognizing in each other that they've all had to be very vulnerable. They've all had to come forward and sort of, sell themselves, sell their business. And in that, they've kind of found a peer group where they can talk about other things. They've done the investment part of the evening. Now they can talk about other things that are going on within their businesses. And similarly, actually, for the investors as well, it was, reasonably unique at that time for the investors to have the space to come together to talk about the deal flows and opportunities that they were seeing. And so it was sort of through that process that we recognised a sort of a need from the entrepreneur community. And Matthew and I decided that that was the community that was closest to our hearts and that we wanted to, serve. And so that led us to kick off our first 9 Others dinner with entrepreneurs around the table back in 2011.
Wow. And the thing I love most about your book, Katie, is that you have 23 pages of people's names who've been, I'm guessing, your teachers, your friends, your connections.
Yeah, they're all of the people who've attended a 9 Others dinner over the 10 years that it took for us to write the book. So
Wow.
they're the participants of the meals. So the Nine Others community is a global community. We've now had around 5,000 people come to our dinners. And so we wanted to, the Nine Others in itself doesn't operate without, the people that turn up and contribute, very openly about the different challenges that they're facing.
Wow. So what do you want entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs to hear?
What do I want them to hear? Well, I think one of the most important assets that you can work to and contribute to building is your network. I think that's so important. But I think often entrepreneurs are so busy doing so many things, they're having to wear so many different hats at any one time, that it can be seen as being, it can be seen as being a bit of a nice to have to spend time going out and networking. But actually, it can be so valuable if you start to build your network before you need it. So you need to be able, if you're looking at building a network of people, whether that's you're wanting to build a network of potential investors, key hires, potential staff, of partners, of customers, then you really need to be able to invest into those relationships and turn up and give of yourself before you need to turn to those people and ask them for something. So I don't see it as a nice to have or a fluffy side activity. I think spending time each week thinking about what am I doing today to either contribute to my network that I've been building or build the network that I sort of think I need in the future. I think that's a really important thing for everyone to be spending time on.
Yeah, giving. And there's that beautiful chapter about who am I going to help today? What a great question. Rather than who can help me?
Yeah, exactly. I think, that's exactly what we've seen. It's the people who go to give. And, we talk in the book about it being like a bank account. You've sort of got to be able to make your deposits into the network and add value. And then, of course, you're in a very strong position that when you need something, you can go and make that withdrawal and ask of people. And they're going to be so much more willing to help. And quite often people think, well, I don't know, what can I give? What can I do? But even turning up and listening, being able to give people the space to talk about what it is they're working on, what things they're coming up against, and ask questions about how they've come up with that, concept or what their background was that led them there. I think those sorts of things is also contributing to building those relationships. It can be softer things. It doesn't have to be transactional.
Yeah. Being a connected human.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? We hear it all the time across all areas of society, but I think particularly in the entrepreneur society, when people are, setting up businesses themselves, whether it is first or second or third time around, it can feel very lonely when you're that founder, even if you're a co-founder. It can feel like a lonely journey if you don't have someone that you can sort of share the ups and downs with. And quite often some of the challenges that you're facing are with those key people in the business. So how do you also sort of address those, and having a network to go to, people who've been through it before or even just 6-12 months ahead of you on the journey can be really valuable.
Yeah. So what made you decide to write the book, Katie?
So it was really the 10-year mark. So in 2021, we hit 10 years of running Nine Others. And in the beginning of the setting up the business, Matthew always had a document in our Google Drive that was called The Book. And, every now and again, he'd sort of think, oh, that's something we should put in, one day we'll write a book and we should put that story in the book. And I think it really was the moment of hitting 10 years. We were like, wow, running Nine Others has never felt like work. It's always sort of been our side hustle, the meals in particular. But it felt like something quite momentous that, we'd sort of achieved, continuing to turn up ourselves and the community turning up for, that amount of time. And so I think it was a great opportunity for us to capture not only the things that we've learned ourselves in setting up and running the business for 10 years, but also highlight some of the experiences of the network. And we wanted to do that for two key reasons. One, we started to recognise, and particularly actually during COVID was a time where we started to see this, that with people moving, some people moving further out of course big cities or moving abroad for different work experiences, then being able to kind of share the 9 Others experience with a much wider community became really important to us. So at the moment, you get the experience if you can turn up and there's a dinner running in your local city, then you can turn up and participate. But that is only in London, it's once a month, and it's for 10 people, yourself and 9 others.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to be able to share the experiences and the insights broader than that. So that was sort of motivation number one. And then secondly, we wanted to also provide some inspiration for the new wave of entrepreneurs from people who were that 6, 12, 18 months ahead of them in the journey. So many business books that you read today, which are incredibly valuable, are of people who are writing it, 10 years past the fact, 20 years past the fact, and they're looking back with rose-tinted glasses, perhaps. And, the Steve Jobs quote that all the dots connect when you look backwards. We thought it would be really valuable for people to be able to learn from those who are still creating the pathways, still building, still in the hustle, but have made some momentous step in that journey.
What a gift. So what's your dream? So you have your dinners. What's your dream for the book? What do you want it to do?
Oh, well, I would love for it to kind of continue to inspire the next wave of entrepreneurs to have the confidence to set up and start up their business ventures in whatever guise that looks like. Again, there can be a lot of chat, particularly within the tech community, that really needs to be, sort of you've got to be going all in, you've got to be going for a unicorn, and you've got to raise VC, and you've got to do X, Y, and Z. But it's so incredibly valuable that we have people who take the step, have the confidence to build a business that employs themselves, employs a few others, is sustainable, brings in revenue, creates profit or an opportunity for that person in whatever guise that looks like for them. And so I think that's sort of my key, absolutely key driver, is to encourage that next wave of entrepreneur to recognize you don't have to follow one particular route to be called, a founder, an entrepreneur, or, to start up a business. And I'm sure you see that a lot within your coaching work, that motivation within people, can I do it? Should I do it? And of course you can, you've just got to take that first step. And it doesn't have to be as scary as it might seem. And then I think it's also about really encouraging people to be helpful to each other. So being able to encourage people to have those conversations of how can I help you, or help, I need help, and reaching out to people in their communities and seeing, through asking questions, through, being connected can support you and give you back, much more than what you could ever expect.
Yeah, and what you're describing is not, can I be your coach and will you be my first client, is it? It's let's connect, let's give, let's receive, let's have fair exchange for no money.
Yeah, and I think things can definitely turn, transactional and commercial, absolutely. But I think that starting point of, asking questions, getting to know each other, is really important. And having worked with, several different coaches myself, and imagine that in building those relationships and asking those first coachees those types of questions, then you're going to start to have some wee aha moments of not only the language that you use to talk about your business and what you're wanting to do, but also hearing it back from your kind of ideal customer as to what they want and what they're looking for. So again, that's, the softer sort of skills of that value exchange is really important.
Yeah. So I know that people often hate networking meetings, the kind of, I'm going to come and it's like a blind speed dating event and I'm going to give you my elevator pitch. I'm absolutely believing that 9 Others dinners are not like that.
Well, we had a fantastic quote that I'll never forget. Alex Knapp sort of sharing as a self-proclaimed introvert that he finds the 9 Others format to be a supportive environment for people who don't like networking. So this is not me just saying it. I think other people have said that the format can really work for them. But what and why we think that is most often people will have either met the host or met, in say in London, Matthew or myself, in some guise. It might be that we've been introduced over email, we've had a call, or we've met for coffee, or, you know, in the past we've worked with your startup. Or nowadays, you know, a good few years in, they've been introduced to the 9 Others concept by someone else they know and trust. So there's already that kind of understanding of what you're going to expect. And we also ask people, you know, to contribute to the costs of the meal. So you pay for you buy a ticket to attend, and we ask you to come to give. So we ask you to say, you know, we want you to turn up to a 9 Others dinner to contribute your thoughts and challenges and questions to the others around the table. And in doing so, you'll receive insights and, you know, thoughts for yourself. So I think there's sort of that mindset when people walk in the room that they're there to, you know, actively connect with people, but also that in doing so, they'll gain some value, some unknown value at this point in time. But with the format of the meal is that we typically spend, you know, 20 or so minutes while everyone's arriving. We'll then sit down around the table. There's no hierarchy. You sit anywhere you like. Excuse me. There's no hierarchy, so you sit anywhere you like around the table. And then we have sharing food that comes out. So there's big platters of food around the table. And that was one of those ways of sort of breaking some ice. So you're not sat there thinking, you know, head down with your plate of food in front of you. You're having to reach across the table, pass, share things, see if the other person's got what across the table's got what they need. And we sort of find that that's a really nice kind of icebreaker to then getting into, right, introductions, short introductions. Who are you? What do you do? And then we go back around the table and ask, what's keeping you up at night? What is the challenges that you're facing while building your business? And it's amazing. We spend 5-10 minutes on each person with all the others from completely different perspectives, not knowing all of the nitty-gritty of the background and what happened yesterday or what have you. You know, sharing their perspectives, their thoughts, their experiences on the challenges that you're facing. And it's not about providing the right answer. Or, you know, it's about giving people a variety of insight to say, actually, well, that doesn't feel quite so right for me, but this piece of advice really does, or this piece here could really add some value, and this is really interesting, and I'd like to, you know, pursue that path and understand if that's the right solution for me.
So being vulnerable straight away.
Yes. Yeah, and really like about building and sort of fast tracking a wee bit of that building of trust. And I think one of the interesting things that we've seen as well is we put on a couple of glasses of wine for people, you know, and when we started, we used to put on the equivalent of sort of half a bottle of wine per person, and you know, and people would drink that, you know, that would be sort of shared throughout the night, and we thought that was part of the process of, you know, a bit of Dutch courage or what have you. But now we find that people, I think again, a societal change, perhaps people aren't drinking as much. So, you know, it just goes to show you don't necessarily need the glass of wine in order to break through, but you need the environment where you feel, you know, that people are expecting you, that you feel like you're part of something when you walk in the door, and then you sort of, you know, contributing straight away. And being vulnerable was your first kind of interaction with 9 Others is asking for help.
And an equality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sounds beautiful. So tell us some of your good news stories. What difference has 9 Others made?
Oh, wow. Oh, I think we've done all sorts of different things. So we have introduced people who've gone on to be sort of first employees at businesses. We've had investments made from people who've been sat next to each other or met through a dinner, which is fantastic. We had a story recently of a company that had come into a dinner. They thought they had great traction at sort of, you know, conversion rates of 30-odd%. And then they were given some insights and bits of advice that then enabled them to increase that to sort of 80% conversion, you know, sort of almost unheard of sort of numbers. But, you know, and I think the kind of honesty of that would be them saying, oh, we thought we were doing really well, and, you know, being able to actually take on that next piece of advice unlocked actually a whole nother layer of value. But I think some of the, you know, the stories that we don't necessarily have all the stats and numbers to are the softer stories where people have become friends, become bridesmaids and at people's weddings, you know, visit each other when they're traveling around the world. And I think that's really, for me, that's the really important part. And I think that a lot of that comes from, you know, my background of moving from New Zealand to the UK and sort of having to start completely from scratch in terms of building a community and network of people around you. I really do understand the value of being able to connect with like-minded people and build a deeper, you know, using 9 others as the jumping off point to build a deeper relationship with someone.
Wow. So, yeah, so much connecting in what you're saying. And that's one of the issues, isn't it, of starting out, the isolation, the loneliness.
Yeah, absolutely. It can feel, and that's all part of it, actually, because you are, you know, in most instances, starting out something new means either you're committing to a new way of working, or you're discovering a new, you know, solution or process or product to address a problem that you felt or that you've seen. And so purely sometimes by the nature of starting, you're already doing something either against the grain or that's different. And so, you know, you can sort of isolate yourself in that way if you're not careful. But I think it's so important then that people recognize that it's a journey. And actually one of the super interesting lessons I've learned on my coaching journey is that it is a journey of entrepreneurship, and it's not about the destination. So you have to, in order to be a founder and to, you know, run a business, you need to be able to get really comfortable within yourself that within a day, within a morning, you might have, you know, you might wake in the best of mindsets that like, great, this is the day we're going to like absolutely smash it. We've got an excellent meeting coming up. And, you know, the first email might hit your inbox and it's like a massive downer, or you uncover something, a piece of work that someone's done that isn't quite up to what you were wanting or up to scratch, or is off brand or whatever it might be. And, you know, it's that constant roller coaster. So finding that way, and that needs to be a kind of whole, you know, toolkit of things that enable and support you as a founder. And finding what those different things are for you is really then about supporting the journey and the day-to-day of, you know, being able to recognize the ups and downs, manage your own expectations, and you know, be very present in that experience. Because otherwise, if you're constantly sort of, you know, feeling like you're in the trenches, you can, you know, it can just all pass you by, because it can be years of being in the trenches, you know.
Yeah. Space to be is a really important thing. Yeah. So I've had a look at your book. And I'm going to pass it around my team because I think it's so brilliant.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Claire.
What are the themes that you want people to be paying attention to in finding their 9 others as they start up and scale up?
I think the themes are really around, you know, as the book starts, it's around looking at your why. Why are you doing this? What is your key motivation? And it doesn't necessarily need to be about some big payout at the end, but it might be about a change in lifestyle that running your own business can afford you and your family, or what have you. So, or addressing a problem, being very motivated to address a particular challenge in society or problem that people have. So there's a whole variety of reasons. And I think sometimes founders can become connected with the why of their business, which is very, very important, but you also need to understand what that why is for you personally. So I think once you've got once you've sort of understood that, and you have to be able to spend the time, it takes time. It's not just a kind of, quite often it's not one of those things that just comes to you in the shower or when you're out for a run. You've really got to kind of be able to dig into those questions and ask yourself, you know, the different layers of why, to be very connected with that. And that has to ring true with your gut. So we talk a lot about this sort of, we have our own 65% rule, but I think it has to really you have to really feel it in yourself because no one else is going to reinforce that for you. No one else is waking up motivated to tell you why you're getting up at 5:30 because you've got to prepare for a board meeting or a client pitch or whatever it might be. You've got to feel really connected with that why, and feel it in yourself. And you can't kid yourself that way. You either feel it or you don't. So I think that's really, really important, and continuing to connect with that on your journey. And then I think the second thing is around the power of the network. I think, that is really instrumental to the book. That's instrumental to my own journey. That's instrumental to the power of 9 others, is that, so often it can be undervalued, the investment that you can make in networking and turning up for each other. But the opportunity for those serendipitous payback moments, or the moments where you're most in the trenches and you need that help, really can pay back. So, tenfold, 100-fold, once you've really spent the time building your network. And building your network, it might take you, months to work out exactly where the types of people that you're, needing to or wanting to connect with hang out. And so you've got to try a lot of things. I think we talk about lighting a lot of fires. You've got to get out there, try, coffee mornings or evening pitch events or conferences or whatever it might be. And you need to sort of put yourself out there, put your head above the parapet, be prepared to talk about what you're doing, and spend the time and invest the time in doing that. And then take the opportunity at the end to sort of recognize, was this where I could add value? Is this where I was meeting people that, are like-minded or that I could help, or, are on the similar sort of path to me, or are the people that I recognize I'm going to need connections with in the future? So taking that time to recognize that as well.
I built some of my network in the playground.
Well, there you go. Exactly. Really could happen anywhere, at yoga, in the playground. Absolutely.
I met a designer, other people who were creating their businesses in that way. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So it doesn't matter where it is, does it? But it does matter that there are people who are not clones.
Yes, exactly. Yes, quite right. And I do recognise that when we sort of say, like-minded, I think it's about, that you're going on a similar journey, or that yes, exactly. You're not a clone of each other.
Like-minded, not like-skilled.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Similar mindset to what you're wanting to achieve or do. Absolutely.
Which is why for coaches, hanging out only with coaches isn't necessarily a great idea, because we need to be hanging around with people who aren't coaches, who do completely different things.
Absolutely. Getting different experiences and understanding the perspectives of those people. What are those trigger points that your clients might be having?
Yeah. We had a buddy in our office. They ran a stationery company.
Oh, very good. Excellent. Very helpful.
That was they did happen to supply our stationery, but actually that wasn't the value of the relationship. The value of the relationship was a sounding board, a place to talk about running their business. Yeah.
I can believe it. I think it's also why co-working, has such a value, is so valuable, because it does give you those opportunities, those moments for bumping into someone, or, having, almost forcing a conversation, encouraging a conversation around, oh, could you pass me that? Or, oh, is the coffee machine broken? Oh, not again. Those sorts of just day-to-day things, isn't it? It is just day-to-day, as you say, like the playground, like around the coffee machine or the water cooler. Or
yes. And actually that's reminded me of that somebody else was an investor in that stationery company, and they used to work for a cereal company, and they told me some amazing stories about how to get feedback at work, which have been really useful for us and really useful for others.
Brilliant.
So very interesting. So what else do people need to do? So they need to find their network, know their why.
They need to know their why. What else do they need to do? I think they need to be able to oh, that's a good question. What else do they need to do? I'm sure there's lots of things. I think being able to finding your network, contributing to your network. I think, we talk a lot about then maintaining your network. That takes time and effort to continue, developing it and feeding back into it once you've, built the relationships with the different people that you need. But I think also then some of the other key things outside of like the network itself are then, very personal. So once you've sort of, found your why and you're developing your, new venture, then you really have to also be able to be sort of disciplined and resilient. I think those are the two key personality traits, or two key traits that we've seen time after time in people who've been building businesses. So there's so many external forces that come into play. And when we look back at the founders who've overcome challenges, whether that's business challenges, whether that's personal challenges, macro market challenges, they're continuously demonstrating those two key personality traits. So they're incredibly disciplined in their approach, whether that's taking on feedback and how they, show up for themselves. And then they're resilient in terms of how they, bounce back up and do get up and go again and see that. And I think that comes back to the point of, recognizing the ups and downs of the journey, and that it's not about a destination. It's about how can you, set yourself up for success in order to really be able to continue to show up as a founder, as an entrepreneur in the day-to-day grind of building a business.
Yeah. Wow. So many interesting things. Listeners, you need to read the book. Find Your 9 Others, The Questions to Ask Yourself as You Start Up and Scale Up by Katie Lewis and Matthew Stafford, available from all online book goodie places. How do people find out about your dinners, Katie?
So they can visit 9others.com. It's number 9others.com. And on there we have a newsletter that they can sign up to, and we release the different dates of the upcoming meals on a sort of bi-weekly basis. So every other week we send out a newsletter that shares the details of either what we're reading or news from the network, and also the upcoming dinners that we're hosting, whether that's in London or other cities around the world.
Wow. I want to come.
Yes, Claire, you're so welcome. Absolutely welcome to come along. We'd love to have
amazing. You. Well, Katie, thank you so much for coming to the Coaching In. Lots and lots of food for thought. Well worth a read, lovely listeners. And lots of food for thought from this conversation. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Claire. I've appreciated it.
Bye-bye, everyone.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we'd love you to share the podcast with a friend or leave a comment on social media. And if you'd like to become a regular at the Coaching In, you can subscribe on Podbean and all major podcast channels. We look forward to welcoming you next time. You've been listening to The Coaching In, 3D Coaching's virtual pub. For more information, check out 3dcoaching.com.